Welcome to part 2 of Book Club. Hey kids, Treacle here. Welcome back to my channel. Today we are continuing with my book club. I'm going to be joined once again by Taz, Nayth and Dimitri as we plow on through the meaning of Mariah Carey. Today we are covering section 2, Sing Sing. Hello, hello.
Hi.
Yes, I can hear you. Hey Nayth, how are you?
I'm very well.
Here comes Dimitri. He just needs some audio. Here comes our Irish friend.
Good morning, good evening.
Does everyone have a book? And does everyone have a splash? Book club.
We do.
Taz, if you don't have a splash this time, you can't sit with us.
Girl.
Cheers.
So I declare the second meeting of the Hey Lamb Gang Book Club Spectacular in session. We are moving on to part 2, Sing Sing. Now, I really loved Wayward Child. That really did grab me more than I thought the childhood section was going to. But the section I was always most excited for was going to be the early years of the career and her talking about Tommy and what went on and everything. So this section gave me so much life. There are so many things to get through. For me personally, I was impressed and surprised by how revealing Mariah was. She said a few times in some interviews that she was kinder than she could have been, or she didn't go in as hard as maybe other people would have, and maybe I got a little bit unsure or nervous that she wasn't really going to spill much tea, but she gave us plenty in here, all the little stories and everything. So I think she actually did Tommy quite a bit of damage, but she did it politely, and that's the difference. So I was very surprised just how much she really gave us in here about the intricacies in their relationship. That's what I took from the second section. Nayth, what was your overall impression of the Sing Sing section?
Revealing, and I was nervous as well about how much she was going to give away and reveal, and I'm content in knowing that she's given us some juicy bits that we don't even know about, which now makes sense when, like, if you look at some lines of her songs. So I'm happy and content with it, and I don't like Tom even more now, so
the door was already closed, but now it's locked, bolted, and there's no way back for Tommy.
And the key is on the map.
We do have to admit that he was very good, specifically at the beginning of her career.
Specifically in the beginning, yes.
He was. You can't take that away from him. But I take my hat off to Mariah for putting up with like intercoms and things. Like, I wouldn't settle for that. Or like when she mentioned about her getting up in the middle of the night just for some me time, and he'd be like, "Where are you? What are you doing?" I'd be like, "Getting some water, chill out."
Definitely, I think though that kind of level of control was something that I think had been like long rumored, and you have people like Wendy Williams like joke that she, really was kind of like locked away in the castle, and she's in this tower, and he's like, "Sing, Mariah, sing," and and I think like jokes have been made about it over the years, but for her to go right back to it and kind of reveal it really was like that, and for those level of details, like her just going, like you say, Nate, to go and get a drink or go to the fridge or something, and the intercom buzzes like, "What you doing?" Like that's really creepy. It's really creepy. Dimitri, what was your overall vibe from Sing Sing?
To Tommy. No, I'm just kidding.
I mean, the same thing. Like, one of the stories that I tell a lot of my friends the most is
how she describes getting out of the bed is like, she like rolls her body over and like places her foot, like it just like the way she like went into detail on that part, just kind of like
how in control and how like close she had to be to him, or like how how he wanted her to just be like right there or in control of everything she does. Even like getting out of bed, she was, I guess I'll say, like scared to wake him up, like just wanted to avoid him waking up.
Yeah, I think it speaks a lot to his insecurity, and she said at one point that it's not so much about affairs or whatever, it's just her being photographed or seen without him. Like, she can't exist as the huge, successful megastar Mariah Carey without being attached to him. But to the level where it's not just crept into their personal life, it's crept into their bedroom, it's crept into their bed. Like, for her to get out of the bed to go and have a moment by herself, that's a conversation that has to be had. So that's a great example, the story of her rolling her body off gently and backing out of the room, because if he wakes up, there's a conversation like, what are you doing? It's just, I didn't realize things were that bad. Taz, what did you make of the Sing Sing section?
For me, I think he was very controlling as a person, obviously maybe jealous, or, you know, because her star was rising, and I suppose she was almost becoming bigger than he was, even though he was the Svengali boss. But I think it's when she started to explore her own music and maybe go down the more urban route, which I suppose they deemed too black, as she mentioned in the book. I think it would have started to stifle her creativity. I think she could accept not being allowed to personally go anywhere. That was her suffering for her fame.
Isn't it so sad? You hear the stories so many times, and we see it through the media, like artists, like you say, like suffering for their art. And we've lost so many like great artists, and a lot of people, you know, literally die for their art. And you read the story, and it isn't an exaggeration to say it was killing her slowly. And she was willing to pay this price, saying to herself, well, you can't have all this success and expect to be happy. And it was the price that she thought she had to pay for so many years. And I fully understand how that's had a lasting impact on her and the relationships that she's had since Tommy. It's hard to fathom having both, but it really is sad that she was going through that level of control and sadness, so much sadness within that relationship right from the beginning. There's that bit before the actual wedding, and she's there with her girlfriends. Was it like the night before? And they're saying to her, you don't have to do this. And she's like, I don't see any other way. I can live with not being free. Like I've grown up with this. I can do this. It's a routine I know how to do. But if I'm in this relationship, I give him this, maybe he'll be happy. And like we've conceded, we have to credit him specifically for the early portion of her successful career. So she was willing to pay that price. And I just think that's really, really sad. Like she was so young and she was just willing to accept that.
It is sad, like you said, like coming from Wayward Child right into that. But I think obviously her childhood kind of set that tone for her. Like she can't have both happiness or success. And with her childhood, the only thing that was going to basically save her from the trauma she was enduring every single day was becoming successful. So when she had that, at least she had one of the two.
You know what I mean? And and it's just sad because it was like, well, I got one, so this is what I was fighting for. I got it, and everything else that I have to, you know, the price comes with it. And it's just sad that that's what she thought the price was.
Yeah, that's the trade-off, and that's the deal she kind of put in front of herself, or she had it set up like that in her mind, and she was willing to pay that price.
She also went from like one toxic environment to another toxic environment. Like for the first 27 years of her life, she was in a toxic environment. You know, if it wasn't her sister trying to pimp her out and, you know, give her cocaine, it was her boss and husband trying to, you know, control her. So, you know.
Yeah, for sure. A lot of what she went through wasn't as... Some of it was public because people, I think, were always kind of looking kind of skew-eyed at that relationship because he clearly is a paternal figure in her life. And, you know, she's barely in her 20s. He's, you know, in his 40s, whatever. And it just looked a bit fucked up at the time.
I wonder what her dad thought of it.
Yeah. Because we got a little insight into what her mum thought. Like, what was it? We're showing the engagement ring, you deserve it. And that was it. There was nothing more said. But we didn't get any insight into what her father made of.
No, but I think it was on Oprah or Barbara Windsor. One of the two women are like, you know, what did you think of about the marriage or the divorce? And Tommy, Patricia was like, you know, if Tommy can make a career, he can break a career. And it's like, she's right there. She's not stupid.
It's mad because I'm surprised actually even back then that Tommy allowed looking in, because I mean, to the fans you could nearly read between the lines. It was really telling. I suppose when the divorce happened, like that song, you could even relate to it even more, that she was screaming for help. And what I found weird was also like how he created Mariah, and yeah, she was this huge caliber of an artist, but he painted the perfect picture for her, the idyllic childhood in the Mariah specials. Her mom was there, the mom-Mariah relationship, on her wedding, the big fanfare on Fifth Avenue, and then she's down on a beach alone, no money, no card. He controls everything. She had to ring someone to be able to get a drink and drown in her sorrows the next day after being married. Like, I mean, the picture, what people saw and the superstar that they saw, what wasn't really what was happening behind the scenes. So I think that's very, very sad to have read about that whole situation.
I can't remember where the interview was. I think it was a print, like an interview. I read somewhere. It was a very brief quote, but she does talk about looking in like years later and says that she got in trouble for that song. I don't know if any of you read that or remember it. I can't remember where it was from.
Era. No, it's on Genius.
That was the second time. That was thank you for reminding me of that. It was before Genius. It might have been Emancipation. It was like several years ago now, but many years, several years after Daydream. And she was, I feel like it was a print article, and my eyes were like, oh, because she's talking about looking in, which doesn't really talk about, doesn't perform. And there was just that little quote that she tried to sneak it in, or she kind of put it in, but then when the album's getting reviewed, that she got, and the quote was, got in trouble for it. Because I always shared the same thought as you, Taz. Like, that's, it's a beautiful song. It's quite an easy message to decipher. And I was always surprised that was allowed, because Daydream's still, early. I know she's still starting to break away behind the scenes, but still early on, and people still look at it as Tommy and Mariah. So I always thought it was a bit much for him to, not much, but I didn't understand how he allowed it. I completely agree with you with looking in.
Another situation that really stuck out to me is when she was in, I always say it really wrong, but Schenectady.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's right. But where she's like, why are all these people, like, why is there police here? Like, and like somebody in the limo was like, that's for you. And she's like, really? And I think it hit home to me because I was like 3 years old watching that, thinking, I want to be famous one day. And then, Mariah didn't even know that was her. Like, I'd love to have known what was going through her mind when she's walking down the steps during the beginning of Emotions, and her thinking, all these people are here for me. I would love to speak to somebody from the crowd as well.
Yeah, that would be awesome. I definitely want to rewatch that special after Reason About It, because that was a really key moment, because you kind of assumed that she realized that she's famous, she realized that she has fans, but it really smacked her across the chops that day.
It's such a short special. It is a short concert. I prefer it to the Daydream thing that she uploaded on YouTube, the Around the World DVD, the Adventures of Mimi. Like, that is my favorite home video of hers.
That is actually one of the other things that I talk to my friends a lot about the book, but that's one of the parts that I bring up too. I'm like, she was already her third album in and didn't know that she had fans.
It's insane. But it was a lot easier back then, obviously. There was no social media or anything like that. You could just manipulate somebody to make them
think whatever. But I'm like, what did she think she was doing this whole time? Like, what?
She must have known, I'm successful. She's, paying all this money for this big mansion and stuff. But I think it's just seeing the faces. It would be so interesting, like Nayth said, to speak with someone who was there. That would be so interesting.
I think there's a difference as well about she knows she probably had fans in general and coming to the signings, but I think she didn't realize that she was probably Michael Jackson, 30 million albums. I knew she probably knew to say it. I just didn't think she put herself. I think it was the first time she saw herself probably on that level, like in a niche space where I'm actually a bona fide superstar. I'm not just a successful artist. I'm actually a big deal.
Let's get stuck into some of the details. Now, one bit I went mad with my highlighter on was that first record deal with Ben. I didn't realize it was like that, you know? Let me just refresh your memories very quickly. She said, I didn't realize the enormity of what I had signed away. I was informed, and what I remember was that he got 50% of the publishing on all songs we worked on together for my first album. Okay, fine. But additionally, he received 50% of my artist's royalties for the first album, 40% for the second, 30% for the third, and so on. It went on that way from 1990 until about 99, even though Ben didn't write one word or note with me after the first album.
So I think he's actually said in public that he would like to work with her again, but obviously thinking like, no.
He's had his money. He's had his money. I think like she speaks about, especially in those early years, like she was rapidly maturing and progressing beyond the people she was working with. And she does kind of talk, especially pre-record label, she does talk about different people she was working with. I think I just put Ben in that kind of camp. But after learning like the details of the deal, I'm like, yeah, I don't care how many times Ben shouts that he wants to work with her. He's had his coins.
Now that we're speaking about it, I feel like I don't even know how that part didn't hit me the way it's hitting me right now. Like, I don't think I really added the numbers together while I was reading.
But then, you know, a show of her character, she said, out of loyalty to him and the hard work we put in together in that little studio, I never looked back and tried to reset or recoup. So she knew she signed it. She didn't have a lawyer or a parent or anyone with her. She is age 18, whatever, signing so much away without realizing it. But she has just not contested it. She's let it ride out.
It probably would cost her a lot more to probably fight it. And at the end of the day, she said it in the book, a contract is a contract. So
yeah,
ultimately, you know, she signed. But I mean, think about the money he would have got for even Music Box. I mean, 30 million albums, even Daydream, like that was the fifth album. So he's still getting half of whatever she made out of an album that sold, again, over 10 million, or maybe how was it, 20 million copies or something?
He's making, you're exactly right. I don't know the numbers, but he's making so much money from those albums. You think she's like an album a year. Every time she puts out an album, he's going to be minted all over again. I want to go back to Tommy briefly. There's this little bit on page 128 where she does talk about how Tommy did in the beginning protect her. And I think, you know, we spoke about it a little bit before, but her kind of like, you know, okay, this is the price I have to pay maybe. But she does talk about how he did protect her from people that thought that she owed them something. And, you know, in that band of people falls her family. And we've just come from Wayward Child. We know it's a toxic environment, like we said. And although Tommy is very controlling, he is good for her career. And almost in a way, the smothering does have one positive side effect at that stage, which was he creates like a wall that her family can't get through or get over. So I think her putting in like little moments like that, little concessions for Tommy, really made me appreciate that she really was taking the rough with the smooth. There was a lot of rough, but there was some smooth. And we know in her early 20s, she still very much needed that protection from her family. And I just wondered what you guys' thoughts were about, you know, her being with someone who is helping her in such a massive way, but also hindering her and hurting her in such a massive way as well. Like, how do you reconcile that?
I can't remember the saying, but isn't there a saying about jumping from the stove to the fire or something? She's kind of done that. Like, she's jumped from the pot with her family, you know, right into the fire with Tommy. So she's kind of, that's how much she wanted it. That's how much she wanted to live her dream, that she was willing to imprison herself for it. But did she know how bad he was going to be? Were they already living together at this point?
I'm not really clear on the timeline, which is why I paid attention to the next page, 129. I'm good at my heart. Anything pink is personal. Anything yellow is career related. But she says on the bottom of page 129, soon after we met, Tommy started making romantic overtures. And I was like, well, how soon is soon? You know, because it must have been very soon, because they got married, Music Box era. and she had relented, like, okay, I'll give him the marriage, I'll give him the wedding, then maybe he'll calm down.
I think the night that they had that like electric moment in the club, I think there was something there. Whether he saw something and she knew that he's seen something. So I think the minute they clocked eyes, there was a spark. She puts it down to he could see potential, I guess. But like at that moment, he hadn't even heard her music, to be fair. So he obviously was attracted to her from the first moment, that vision of love.
You're talking about on the stairs at that party? Yeah. Yeah, she does.
Like she said, and you and I think Brenda says to her, like, oh my God, you know who's just checking you out, or who like they she could see that this moment had just happened. She's like, do you know who he is? Like, he is Tommy Mottola, like he's a massive deal or whatever.
See, I wouldn't have gone that early. I would have gone like maybe the beginning of the Emotions album.
I'm kind of thinking maybe he would have like got one album in the bag, like secure the professional relationship, get the deal. But I think from that moment, Taz on the stairs, he was like, yeah, boom, because he hadn't heard the demo tape at that point, you know. So I think it was always his intention, maybe, for this to be an all-encompassing professional, personal relationship. But
because she had more control over the Emotions album, didn't she? So in my mind, I'm thinking that he's gone, okay, then because I like you, you can, obviously it probably wasn't quote unquote, but maybe he was like, because I want to be with you, I'll let you have a little bit more control on the next album.
Maybe a little bit of bartering. Dimitri, let's have you weigh in. When do you think Tommy sealed the deal?
Well, sealing the deal, I do not know. I like to think that the deal was never sealed.
However, I feel like the feeling I got was the same as Taz. Like, I think he laid eyes on her, and from that moment, it was just, you know, he had that intention the entire time, then listened to the demo tape.
He was the one who could open doors for her, and he realized that he had that. Then maybe he started to like make moves.
He knew what he was doing. He knew what he was doing.
Exactly.
And she was young and vulnerable, we know, and naive. Who isn't naive, you know, in their early 20s? Okay. I want to skip ahead in the book, but at the same time, kind of go back a step, because on that ride back from that special in Schenectady, oh my God, Schenectady. Dimitri, you say it.
You guys have a better chance at saying that right than I do.
But you're American.
English is my second language, okay?
Upstate New York.
On the ride back from Schenectady, I did it. It was that night that Close My Eyes came to her. And this was really a part of the book that we get several times over that I really, really hoped for and wanted. And every time we get it, it's satisfying when she talks about the birth or a creation of a song. So we get so many lyrics in the book. We get so many moments of these spoken and sung in the audiobook. And we know Close My Eyes is so, so precious to her. We get that 2020 version on the album, The Rarities. I'm so happy she went into detail about how that song, you know, came to her, and it is personal to her. So it means so, so much. I really enjoyed it. What did you guys make of, you know, did you enjoy that moment, hearing about the birth of Close My Eyes as much as I did?
I love any time she acknowledges the birth of a song, like when she's like, I wish she'd do more track by track. You know, when an artist releases an album, they're like, so track 1 is Vision of Love, and I had the idea for this, and track 2, and I wish she'd do that. But I love it when she says also, you know, I was, you know, laying in the bathtub and, you know, looking up at the moon and things. I don't know if that's the songwriter in me that likes that, because that's one of our connections.
Is Dimitri stalled for anybody else?
I was about to say, yeah, Dimitri has, it's not a very flattering image either. So, okay, we've lost him. We'll get him back in. Look at that. That was a bit gobble. One thing I wanted to touch on is a story that has... Nayth, you okay?
Yeah, there's a part I need to speak about.
All right. One thing I wanted to touch on is a story that has been touched upon many times, and I thought, okay, it's this story, we know it, but I still enjoyed it so very much in her own words. It's the visit to Sing Sing for the remix recording and video shoot of Always Be My Baby, and she had to go get them French fries, and she had to have that little escape moment. We know the story. It's entertaining and a bit sad and scary at the same time, that that's the way things were. But I really enjoyed her telling it in her own way. What did you guys make of it?
I can't listen to I can't listen to the remix without thinking like, oh my goodness, like what was going through, like, was this part she's singing right now, is it before the French fries or is it after? Like, so
Does she have that salty breath? Like, yeah. What did you guys make of that whole story? Because she did go into detail, like hiding up in the shoe closet.
But I think it's Brat saying, you know, you're Mariah Carey. What do you mean you can't get a French fry?
I had to remind myself that it's not a fiction book. Like, everything in here actually happened. This actually happened. Like, she was actually imprisoned in her house that she paid half of.
It's a great story, though. It's not fiction, but it is a great story. Like, it is, you don't have to really pull out the dramatics in a biopic or a series. You just tell the story.
I think what you said, Dimitri, is so true. We all have moments in life where, like, it's a great story to tell, and it just writes itself. Like it actually happened. And I think if we were to get some kind of production from the memoir, whether it's a movie, series, whatever, that is something that would play very well, because it is very telling of her situation at that time, but there is a good entertainment value in it as well. Like, she just wanted French fries and all hell broke loose. We have to talk about DJ. We have to talk about Derek. I got very excited when we got both the stories, the story of their first encounter at that party, that dinner party or whatever, like her first night away from Tommy, after they put on their show at the awards ceremony or gala, whatever it was they were at, and the second story up on the rooftop. So I don't mind where we go with this, but who wants to jump in, and like, which was your favorite, their first meeting or the roof moment?
I think the roof, because it was naughty. He essentially cheated on Tommy.
I thought she was going to get way more backlash in the public for that. I thought it was a brave story to tell, because she could have painted that we were pretty much over, which she does. It really was, obviously, but it still technically wasn't. The ties weren't severed.
I don't read that story and take it that, you know, I don't interpret it as cheating. There's many different types of cheating, and there's emotional cheating, there is physical cheating. I don't think Mariah did anything before her divorce that would count as official cheating.
No.
Emotionally, for her to get that kind of stimulation and that excitement, and like, it's almost quite sad for her at like 26 to talk about, oh, that's what it feels like when you have butterflies in your stomach, when it's like, you know, when you like a boy, like your stomach turns funny, you know, like it's quite sad that she's remembering those feelings at 26, or having them for the first time as a woman, feeling that way about a man. So I was like, yeah, like, you get those butterflies, you go chasing them, you go to that pizza parlor and meet him.
Do you think she never loved Tommy like that then?
I don't think he like flipped her stomach and flipped her legs in the air and had all kind of passionate moments and stuff.
I think, I mean, there's a moment when you experience a love, and then you experience a love, you know, and that's different. I think there was a difference. Yeah, she had love for Tommy. Yeah, and it's just, I don't know, love has, like, there's a spectrum of love, and I think with Derek Jeter, she experienced, like...
True, like, I want this. This is for me, exactly, like flatteration, just a full beyond 8th grade crush type feeling. And whether people want to label it as cheating or not, I just think, like, look, Tommy did not give her any sort of respect where she should even consider the line of cheating or not. Like, we have a piece of paper, you do not respect me,
I'm not even going to consider what line is cheating or not. This is for me. This is the moment that I'm living and enjoying. And you know what? I'm going to live it and enjoy it. That's how I felt.
Definitely. I think she was very patient, and the fact that she didn't want to do much or really go down that avenue too much until things were definitely done, because she said it was never her intention to break her vows. So in terms of like physical intimacy, she wasn't going to go there until a certain point. She respects herself, and even after everything that they have been struggling through, she still respects Tommy to that degree, and she respects the vows that she made. She didn't take them lightly. She feels a bit bound by them, and she feels constrained by the whole relationship, but she still entered voluntarily into that marriage, and she's going to honor that. I was just so happy when we get to this section about Derek, and like, just yay, because she just sounds so free. She felt so stimulated and excited. Like, we've had all this sadness, and then she meets a boy and she likes him, and it's like a fluttering feeling. I got really excited with her as she was reliving it.
And I think because he had the same kind of heritage as her as well. I think his mother's Irish and he's mixed race, or biracial, and it was like a mirror image of herself. And as she mentioned in the book, like, it was the first time that she'd ever experienced that this setup doesn't have to be like the life that she had. You can have a happy family, a loving family. He's got himself, apparently, and his sister have a really close relationship, which she obviously didn't get.
I just want to spend just a couple quick more minutes on Derek, because it's such a significant part of the book, and she says herself she's the queen of taking a morsel and making a meal out of it, and he got many songs. I love the fact that she was, so inspired by her trip away, and when she played Honey to Tommy and people. But The Roof really, like, it always hit hard, but it really does hit even harder now, when she's like, just read the lyrics, and that is what happened. It is exactly what happened. Have you guys listened to The Roof since reading the book, or watched the video since and just re-experienced it at all?
Absolutely. I listen to The Roof every day, but The Roof has always been a story to me. Like, and I've always felt that it was word for word. So when she tweeted that, it was like, wasn't a shocker in one way, but it was like more of like a confirmation.
We speculated it might be Derek, but we didn't know maybe a lot of her private life. We knew it wasn't Tommy, that's for sure.
But there's like certain specifics in there, like it wasn't rainy yet on that warm November night. On that warm November night, my heart was pounding, exactly. And it's like, it's too,
vivid.
It's too specific. It's too vivid to be like, oh, I'm gonna write a song called The Roof.
I think it was always fair to take it as it was a real moment in time for her, and for me, it was just a question of how much artistic embellishment did she add to it. Other songs more, but The Roof, no, she just gave it to us. She served it straight up. This is a real life moment as it happened. I love this book for so many reasons, but I really love it for confirming things about the songs, or shedding light onto them and giving them new meaning. And
she shed light onto songs that she doesn't normally shed light on, like All in Your Mind and The Roof. I wish it shone a light on Prisoner.
That is your jam.
One topic we have to talk about is one moment that inspired a part of the song Petals. Of course, I'm referring to the butter knife incident. So, on page 200, Mariah sets the scene and says, one evening I was working with two men I had a significant creative and professional relationship with, whose duty it was to have mob-like loyalty to Tommy. And then she goes on to describe what actually happens with the butter knife. I won't read that whole bit, but these two men that just were bystanders and didn't do anything, the people that, saw the knife chipping away at her and then turned their eyes away and went home to sleep from Petals. Who are these two men, do you guys think? Well,
we know one of them because he made an Instagram post, but then subsequently deleted it. He said he was there on the night and that she over-exaggerated and wasn't, but then he obviously took away his post because holding a knife to a woman's face is just never acceptable in any planet, so
yeah,
you couldn't excuse that away. I'm not saying I'm not going to really be going out there, but like, I have a feeling I know who the other person is, and she's never reconnected with that person as well. I think that other person was there on the night.
You mean Walter?
Like, I
In
don't
my mind,
remember
it's
his
Walter.
Wally. So I think he was there that night as well. She said there was two that she worked, and she worked with both those guys probably a lot around that time. And I think he didn't stand up for her either.
Because she says significant creative and professional relationship, straight to my mind
It has to have been him.
was Walter, because it fits timing wise, and I have picked up on other quotes and interviews that it was this mob like loyalty to Tommy that she struggled with, and when she left, he wouldn't or couldn't because of contract, whatever. Like, she left and he stayed, and that was it. And I think that is a moment that really would have cemented it.
And he has come on record since to say again that he would work with her and he'd love to work with her and all the rest. And it's never, she's like, snakes in the grass trying to come along.
Yeah, I want to talk a bit more about what he said recently. But Dimitri, did you instantly go to Walter when you heard that bit?
No, but it makes perfect sense now that I hear you guys. I just didn't really put too much thought into like who they were.
Okay.
But then, yeah, as Taz said, that one guy did post, so I knew that was him, but I just, no, but it makes perfect sense. I agree. I feel like it was Walter as well.
I think he was scared that, hang on a minute, she's getting a little bit too big for her boots. Yes, she's Mariah Carey, who sold, this amount of records. She's debuted at #1. She's got the longest running #1. I need to put her back in her tracks and tell her that I'm the boss. I run this show. I made her career, and I can break it if I want to.
Yeah.
And it makes me so angry.
He was embarrassed. He was embarrassed. He's
His
there
poor
in front
little
of
ego.
his boys, and Mariah says he was embarrassed. He's about to lose control and lost his woman in front of his boys. He began an awkward and creepy little rant about the beautiful car he just given. Remember, she said that he tried to give her that car, this grand gesture as like a last ditch attempt. Like, he knew things were ending. So he's going on about the car and their fabulous estate, which she'd half designed and half paid for, and how in spite of all of that, she wanted to leave him. Like, how very dare she? I feel like throughout the book, she touches on so many different songs at so many different times. And one bit I was pleasantly surprised by was the reference to Crybaby. If you remember, she said, like, she takes a morsel, turns it into a meal, and Rainbow, well, she's past Derek, she's not with Derek anymore, but Crybaby was born from this moment of conversation with a friend where she's reflecting on the relationship that she's had with Derek, and doing the whole Joan Rivers voice of, it could have been perfect, the mother loved me, the sister loved me, everyone loved me. And she said she took that energy and channeled it into Crybaby. And I'm like, those are the moments that I live for, because I'm like, well, timeline wise, maybe it fits. She's maybe reminiscing about Derek, but she just gives it straight to us. Yep, I was talking to a girlfriend and I was reflecting on the fact the family loved me and it could have been perfect. And like you said earlier, Nayth, I find myself quite hungry as well for those moments. Like, when did that lightning bolt strike? Where did that inspiration come from? So those juicy bits, I really, really, I just love them so much.
But we have to remember, in that same album, she wrote "Did I Do That?" and "Your Conversation Painfully Weak," and "You Were Much Better Off When You Didn't Speak." And maybe it was the idea of being in love, and
I wish there was some indication on songs that are drawn from her own experience, and songs that are just like, oh, it'd be great to do a song like this. Like, who is Did I Do That about? Who is Prisoner about? And so, like, Did I Do That? Like, who is that about? Like, that's a specific, like, who is she dissing in that song? Like, your conversation's painfully weak, we're much better off when you didn't speak.
Well,
Like, who?
Taz intimated there, if I'm reading you right, Taz, that could have been Derek. Like, she is the idea of them as a couple, and she was in love with love, and she was in love with the idea of them, but it didn't work out. Is that kind of what you were saying, Taz?
Yeah, I think I was saying that she was in love with the idea of being in love and that being the perfect relationship, but she was pushing for something with him that ultimately wasn't there. I suppose when she sat down and had a chat with herself, conversation was painfully weak or whatever, it wasn't there. She was trying to make it more than it was.
So I think about albums and I'm like, well, I think sometimes they might be linear in terms of the structure. And other times she's got smatterings of songs about different people, different emotions, and they're the song selections, and then ultimately she has to put them in an order that flows. So I try not to take things as start to finish as gospel, because storyline it'll work, but to the ear it's not going to blend so well. So I always take the order of songs with like a pinch of salt. She could have something, you know, bad about someone early in the album, and then later on it's good, you know, about the same person. Doesn't mean that things weren't smooth before they got rough or whatever. I don't know. But no, it's an interesting point. I really enjoyed the story of her getting on her plane and going to Japan to go above Tommy's head and to negotiate how she is going to get out of this Columbia contract, get away from Sony. And it's a bit of an unprecedented move. And she didn't really have any kind of prep or any kind of anything, just this idea of, I need to go and talk to someone. So forget Sony Music, let's go to the boss of Sony. What did you guys make of that?
I think it was her way of kind of saying, like, right, well, if you ain't gonna fight for me, I'll go fight for myself. See you later. I'm off to Japan. Like, I'm Bauer, and like, kind of, you know, just be like, right, here I am. This is my career. This is my life. This is my name that's on this CD. I have to fight for it. And I think it just goes to show how determined she is. Like, she was like this little girl who had this dream, who then was in her friend's dad's workshop recording an album, and then she has this massive break. She's worked so hard for this, and then somebody is like gonna be this hurdle, and she's like, well, nobody's gonna lift me over this hurdle for me. I'm gonna have to lift myself. I'm gonna have to jump the hurdle myself. The hurdle being go on the plane around the world to Japan.
Yeah.
And she was like, right, I'm gonna have to take matters into my own hands. Fuck everybody else.
I love that for her. Taz?
So I think I remember at the time that rumor had it that Sony didn't want to let her go, because especially Sony Japan. She was huge in Japan. She was like, I guess they really didn't see her as a person. She was a machine. She could make billions. Yes, Tommy, you know, she made millions. She done well, but we have to remember that she was making the company billions, not just in America, globally. And Sony were not, like, Sony Japan were not happy that she, because I guess of a personal difference, wanted to leave Sony. It didn't make sense. And, you know, they were probably going to fight against all costs to keep her on the label, but she, for personal reasons, had to, if he was going to remain in her boss, she couldn't stay. So I guess she had to go over Tommy's head and go to the guys in Japan that didn't want to relinquish any contracts, or, you know. So at the end of the day, as I said, they probably viewed her not as Mariah Carey the person, but as a money-making machine. Like, she could, at that time, was selling millions of albums.
The franchise. She was the franchise after all. I think I'm glad to kind of read that she kind of got that exit deal or exit terms, you know, on her own terms, and she was accepting, okay, so it's going to be number ones, it's going to be Rainbow, it's going to be greatest hits, it's going to be the remixes. Like, these weren't just like, oh, let's just piss them out randomly. Like, that was actually all mapped out. She knew all of that was happening, especially greatest hits and the remixes. I didn't realize at the time of them coming out that was, you know, that had been inked and agreed, you know, a few years beforehand. Dimitri, what did you take away from that whole adventure to Japan to fight for her freedom?
I was like, I had to refresh my memory just because there's so much.
I took a stand by myself and for myself. I made it happen, and soon I would be free. That kind of just like, I don't know. I feel like that would have been like a, what am I trying to say here? I have no idea where I was going with that. No idea. It was like the whole train of thought, and then it was gone. But it was just like, you know, and soon I would be free. And I don't know, my mind kind of just like jumps to glitter in that moment, which I guess I don't see how her mind
When
would
did
be
she
free
go
during
to
the glitter
Japan?
moment.
What year was it?
It's before it's after Butterfly and before Number Ones was released, because they've agreed that Number One's Rainbow and the greatest hits and the remixes, we know, would be part of that 4 album package as part of her leaving. So
Because did she forget about the greatest hits being released? Because isn't there a video of her in Afghanistan where she's like being interviewed by someone, and the bloke's like, "Oh, so your new album, The Greatest Hits, is released?" And she's like, "Is it? I don't know, like whatever."
I can imagine her being less invested. That, like, Number Ones, she pitched that as a concept because they wanted to do greatest hits, and she was like, "It's too early, and it feels like you're just trying to sew me up and like I end with the '90s with you." No, which is why we got that big handful of new songs, or the covers. Rainbow, obviously, she's not going to forget about it. It's a studio album that she got out so quickly,
Which I really like. I love Rainbow.
Greatest hits, I can imagine her not being like on the pulse, like, oh, it's release day, so yeah, if someone catches her in an interview, she's kind of forgot, oh, is it today? I can imagine her, it's like a contractual agreement, like, tick, that's released. She did say that the remixes, which is what, 2003, she was more involved in, because by that point Tommy had left, so she was a bit more involved, which I think
I was listening to that today. Why is Sweetheart, Crybaby on there? Like,
yeah, there's songs there that aren't remixes, but I think it has her influence on it, because it's got the 2
Urban.
CDs, and you've got the R&B set and you've got the club set, and I think that's how it started out. And she's like, well, if we're having an R&B CD, can we put on that and that, as well? So I think that's how it kind of, you got those kind of extras where they're not remixes, but if you've got an R&B CD and you've got a club CD and there's room to add a couple more, then I think that I imagined her having that kind of contributions when she said she was more involved. She's out of Sing Sing. We're happy. We're elated. She's gone to Japan. She's fought for her freedom. She's negotiated the terms of that agreement, and you exhale, but then we have to take a breath, because the next time we sit and chat, we are moving into the glitter era, and that was not an easy read.
But again, I think Tommy could access those files from Glitter because of the ties with the album being under Sony in Japan, and the movie was under Columbia, I think, as well. So it was easy
Pictures, yeah, he definitely
the...
had a root in there. So next time we sit, guys, I want all your thoughts, all your conspiracy theories, everything that you think went on. Let's bring receipts.
Can I do a disclaimer right now? I'm sorry if I cry during the next one, because I cried so much during all that glitters.
Okay, so for the next video, make sure you've got your good lighting, your good angle, and your splash, your Burke, and some Kleenex. Guys, thank you so much for sitting down with me once again and going through Sing Sing. I can't wait to go through the next section, All That Glitters. It's the one that I was so hungry for. I can't wait to chat to you all about that. So until then, love you, enjoy you, appreciate you, and to the next time. Cheers, thanks a lot.
I finished mine. I finished my drink.
Pour another one.